1 second.
Good. I'm good. Welcome everyone to the City of Evans City Council meeting for March 15th. I'm Brian Rudy, the mayor. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Rudy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Spear.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Councilmember Castle. Councilmember Mortensen.
Here.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a proclamation proclaiming March 13th through 19th, 2022 as AmeriCorps Week in the city of Evans, Colorado. Whereas service is a hallmark of the American character and has the unique ability to bring people of all backgrounds together in a common cause, and throughout our histories, citizens have stepped up to meet our most pressing challenges of the day by volunteering in their communities. Whereas AmeriCorps provides opportunities for more than 250,000 Americans to serve their country through service in nonprofits, schools, public agencies, and community and faith-based groups across our country. Whereas AmeriCorps members and AmeriCorps seniors volunteers encourage collaboration and partnerships, leveraging millions of volunteers in service and acquiring the support of businesses, foundation, and other local partners to increase the effectiveness of their initiatives. And whereas National Service represents a unique public service partnership that invests in the community, solutions, and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars. And whereas AmeriCorps Week is an opportunity to recognize the dedication and commitment of the more than 1.2 million Americans who have chosen to serve their country through AmeriCorps, and millions more who will have served in AmeriCorps senior and their community partners, and to encourage more Americans to follow in their footsteps. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Brian Rudy, Mayor for the City of Evans, do hereby designate March 13th through the 19th, 2022 as AmeriCorps Week in the City of Evans, and urge citizens to thank AmeriCorps members and alumni and AmeriCorps seniors volunteers for their service and to find their own way to give back to their communities. In witness hereof, I have here unto set my hand and cause to be the affixed seal of the City of Evans this day, 15th of March, 2022. And I believe we have a gentleman named John Jones here in the audience. If you want to step up to the podium, I'd like to present this to you. Thanks for being here tonight, Mr. Jones. Yeah.
John actually couldn't make it.
Oh, you're not John? Okay. Everyone, this is Nicholas, not John. Thanks for being here. Asia? Nice. How are you? So I'm going to present this to you. We'll get a picture here. If you guys want to say anything, you want to welcome here.
Hi, my name is Asia Gilbert. I am the NOCO AmeriCorps project coordinator with the United Way of Weld County. And this I lost him, but this is Nicholas Golden. He is an AmeriCorps member serving as our VISTA leader at the United Way of Weld County. I just want to thank all of you here for your time. I would like to thank the mayor, the city council, and the city of Evans for your support of AmeriCorps and our project. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Such an important thing you guys are doing. So thank you.
Very appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address City Council on any item that's not on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, City Clerk, anyone virtually?
No, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda. We do have a change to the agenda. We'll be adding an executive session. And I could read that at executive session, right? So we'll be adding one executive session at the end there. I move to approve the agenda as amended.
I second.
Motion is second to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, consent agenda. Approval of the March 1st, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Consideration of ordinance number 757-22. approving an oil and gas lease between the City of Evans and PDC Energy for city-owned property near 23rd Avenue and 49th Street, the second reading, and consideration of resolution number 12-2022, terminating the state of disaster emergency declared by resolution number 09-2020.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, new business. Consideration of approval of the Hunters Reserve Plaza 1 LLC and Hunters Reserve Plaza 2 LLC development agreement. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. Tonight we have a development agreement for your consideration that would bring more retail to Evans. This would be for a new project at the corner. Would be on the southeast corner of 35th Avenue and 37th Street. And I'll turn it over to our Community Development Director, Ann Bess Johnson.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Caitlin is the one that really started processing this land use application, and then I just wrapped it up. So she did most of the hard carry forward with the developer. So again, this is the development agreement for Hunters Reserve. It is located on the south side of 37th Street, and it is just east of where Walgreens and Ziggy's is, so west of 35th Avenue. This is the site plan. Again, it was an administrative approval for a site plan, and it contains shell construction that allows for lots of potential different development to come in. It does allow for up to 3 drive-through windows, 2 on the easternmost building and 1 on the western building. So there will be a drive-through. Up in this area to on the north side, as well as 1 on the south, and then 1 over here on the south. There's plenty of parking in the middle. Landscaping proposed to buffer between their property and the neighboring property, and enhance landscaping across the front, and then landscaping within the parking area. These are some artist renditions of what the property could look like and what the plans are. This right here, so Ziggy's would be right here, and this is actually covered outdoor seating, and they've promised me maybe Tivoli lights or fairy lights or something under the canopy to just have attraction so that there is, in the evening, you can see movement, you can see people. It looks like there's activity going on with folks outside. So, and then here would be a drive-through canopy, and then a drive-through will be on this side and a drive-through on this side right there. This is another rendition. This would be looking towards the west. There's that outdoor space right there. This is looking towards the east, and that northernmost drive-through canopy on the east side. And again, here's a layout without the landscaping, so it doesn't look as busy, and you can see the drive-through areas. And so in the development agreement itself, it's following a standard form, and we work with the templates and tools that the city attorney has provided to us. It's a standard warranty requirement of 115% and a post-release retention requirement of 15%. The applicant did provide us with cash that's being held in escrow, and that did come through by wire transfer really late on Friday. So you have a letter, I believe, in your packets that was handed to you tonight that just provides you with evidence that we did receive that. The developer is responsible for the following improvements. They are in Exhibit C of the development agreement in your packet, and that includes sidewalk and ADA compliant infrastructure, access and egress improvements, water and sewer line connections, stormwater infrastructure, and then purchase of EQRs for the assumed water demand on the property. There are no financial obligations from the city for this particular development. There are recommendations in suggested motions in your packet, and staff again has worked with the developer through this development agreement and the site plan approval process, and so staff is in favor and does recommend approval of this development agreement. And with that, I will finish my presentation, and Caitlin's here if you have any questions specific to the site plan, which is administratively approved, and then I can answer any questions regarding the development agreement. And then we also have the developers here as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have questions of staff or comments at this time? We'll start with you, Fred.
So is this going to be another community property, or excuse me, commercial property that the city can't supply irrigation water to?
The irrigation water will be supplied through the potable system. Non-potable was not available at this location, and I know that Assistant City Manager Randy Reedy might have more information if you're wanting specifics on why we can't supply non-potable, but it is cost prohibitive until we get a greater mass of commercial property in this area.
So the EQRs that there will be proposed to purchase from the city later on are only for the expensive Greeley treated water. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Pardon me. Just to clarify, the EQRs that you spoke of are already are purchased by the developer from other EQR holders, correct?
We purchased from our bank.
Oh, from our bank. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. My last question is, it seems recently that the city has been annexing a lot of property into the city which does not have water rights. Is this going to be a continuing trend?
Councilmember, I'm not sure. Is there an annexation that you're speaking to specifically?
Well, I'm just looking at future annexations. It seems like we've had Ziggy's and Idaho Street, and Idaho Street's been around forever, but it has no water rights on the east part of town. So I'm just wondering how long this is going to continue, because we only have a limited number of available water rights to sell to new development.
Our policy is that developers have to ensure that they have enough water for their projects in this development approval stage. So part of the development approval process for this project was making sure that in total there was enough water to serve the site. You know, when property owners petition for annexation into the city, it's certainly a consideration, but the water rights are typically settled at the time of development.
Mr. Mayor, you said at this time we can also make comments.
Yeah, but I would ask that you make it on this item, not on items that have to do throughout the rest of our city. If you can keep it to this development agreement, please, yeah, make comments.
Okay, I'll skip it.
Okay. Other questions or comments on this item?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
And would you please go back to the site that shows Ziggy's and Walmart on there? One before that.
Walgreens, yeah.
I'm sorry, Walgreens. Yes, okay. It's a wall. With this development, my question is, what do we propose for the land south of there? If we have, my concern, and I think this is a very well thought out development, I am kind of looking forward to it myself. However, my concern is what the options are going to be for the property to the south of that. Is that going to, is there going to be a way to develop that into something? What is that zoned?
I would have to look at my zoning map. I don't have that particular zone district memorized. It's either residential or commercial, but that could easily be developed into multifamily. It could be developed into commercial. There is an access right here, and this is an access road that serves Walgreens, Ziggy's, and will serve these two properties and even this property.
Okay.
So that access road could potentially serve this development as well. This particular development before you today, they integrated a little bit of their landscape setback, things like that, with the property owner to the west right here. As this one develops, we're going to want to see some kind of consistent treatment. So it looks unified, as if it was developed as, a thought, had that long range vision. And so down in this area here, it can develop with lots of different options. Again, multifamily, it could be commercial.
Could we continue on if they were successful with that and came back with, some more? For me, this corner kind of reminds me of something like in Brighton, where their King Supers was in the back there and their parking, and they had different shops and everything on the side. So I just want to, I just wanted to make sure that option was still open, that if this was filled up with businesses, that we could expand it and didn't make it into, what do I want to say, a dead end, and still have that opportunity. So I think that it's a good idea, and I like it. Thank you.
Other questions or comments, Tammy?
I just want to say I'm super excited about this, like super excited. And the open seating and whatnot, that I think opens it up for, so many uses, especially with people's health and worries and that. So I'm excited. My only question for you is, for the landscaping, are they allowed to do like xeriscaping and the water conserving things? Because I know that's an issue for people, and I get that 100%. But I can't remember, because we were doing the land use and whatnot. Are they allowed to xeriscape?
So yes. Oh.
No,
okay. So rather than xeriscaping, which is just rocks, they are doing xeriscaping, which is using the drought-tolerant plant material.
Got it.
And definitely, we encourage all development to do that. And the city has some wonderful examples of plant selection and available for individuals to select from, and the operations team reviews the landscape plans as well, and these were professionally designed landscape plans, so we're excited.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Johnson?
I just want to share in the excitement. This is exciting. I just really like the fact that area is moving along, and we're bringing more business to the area. I mean, clearly with, the businesses are already there, we see some traction, which shows there's a need, and also a sustainable ability to continue to make this area successful. So I'm excited to bring this to Evans, and excited for its potential. That's all I want to say. I comment.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark, anything to add?
Thank you for doing business in Evans. We really appreciate having you here. We look forward to your development, and I can't wait to see what it becomes when it's finally done. So thank you for choosing Evans. We appreciate it.
Do you have something
I'm
else?
sorry,
Go ahead, please.
That just reminded me
Go
of
ahead.
something else.
Yep.
So along that lines, what's the timeline for approval and the next steps and the timeline for?
Sure, great question. So the site plan has been submitted. It's been signed. So tomorrow the intent is to first record the site plan, and then right away, as soon as we get that site plan recorded, we enter the recording numbers in Exhibit B in the development agreement in your packet, and then we turn that over when we get that recorded. They are, I believe, they may have some of their CDs may have been permitted and approved, but the developer is here, so we can put them on the spot and ask them specifically about when we get to have a groundbreaking ceremony. But as far as Evans is concerned, from a planning perspective, tomorrow is the big recording day.
So that's the last step.
And that's the last step for planning. And then they have the CDs and the grading permit and things like that, but I think they're well on their way on that. But
Did you
yeah,
want
for
to talk to the
planning.
developers? Do you want to step up and
I would
answer
love
that
it.
question?
They would,
one of you?
yeah, they would.
Hello, I'm Brandon Belfiore. I represent the developers, mayor, members of council. Thanks for having us, and I'm excited to hear the good feedback and the excitement from you guys as well. I've been involved in the community for 20 plus years. I'm actually an Evans firefighter, started back in 2000, so been in this community for about 20 years, and I've been driving by there in a fire truck for about 20 years, and identified a long time ago that this is a great potential. I'm excited now to have put together some investors that are able to help us bring this project to life. We will be bringing our current family business is Naughty Pine Liquor, so we're going to bring that across the street. It's an expansion of our business. It's an update of our business. So we're excited for that. I'm the principal owner of Coral Bay Wine and Spirits, and there's some potential to merge those together, which is something that we may look at down the road. My brothers and I are going to bring another concept, which we own, is Hiroshi Teriyaki Grill. So we're going to bring another fast casual restaurant to the project as well. We have several other potential, tenants that we have identified as prospects that we're hoping to get, closer to signing letters of intent and those types of things. But we've been real hesitant to go too far with a lot of that marketing until we got final approvals and such. So as far as timelines, as far as construction goes, as Ann mentioned, we've kind of got past most of the planning. We've submitted our construction documents, which have been approved. So I think once we get through this hurdle, we're ready to get moving as far as grading. So we'll probably look to get those permits going. I've actually submitted our construction documents to Safe Built to the building department for building permits. So we're hoping to break ground probably third quarter of this year. We're looking at probably an 8 to 10 to 12 month construction time on our first phase. So we're going to build the first building, which is going to be on the east side. And then we're going to come back and we're going to build the second building, which is on the west side. The reason for that is that we wanted the western exposure for our liquor store. So we're choosing to build that building first. But ultimately, all the infrastructure and the landscaping for phase one will all get put in within the next, I would say, 10 to 12 months. So, is that going to give you guys an overview? Like I said, we're excited. We have some prospective other tenants. As Ann mentioned, we're hoping for a nice restaurant use on that 37th Street patio. We're kind of thinking along the lines of a Fuzzy's, or I think we're going towards that. I'm not sure. Hopefully we can land maybe a sit-down restaurant, similar to Palomino's or something like that. But I think that there's some potential there. There's also some potential with the COVID brought a lot of change to the fast casual restaurant business, and you're seeing like Chipotle's, you're seeing a lot of these guys go to basically a pickup window. We don't necessarily see those windows as a true drive-through where you're going to order at a kiosk and pick up. We're more visualizing them or anticipating those to be more of a pickup window. We have another project that we did in Greeley where we have a Papa Murphy's, and it's the same type of setup there where you order ahead and you pick up in the drive-thru. So there's not really a stacking of cars or such. So I think that's mostly what those are going to be designed for. I don't think we're going to have a Chick-fil-A or something like that there. Maybe a Jimmy John's. So that was the intent of those drive-thrus. I know some look at it and they're like, wow, we got a lot of drive-thrus there. But I think that it opens our ability to market to some of those uses. And as the restaurant industry has changed a little bit, the to-go business is heavily supported these days with that type of situation. So that was the intent of that.
Thank you, Mr. Belfiore.
I'd be happy to answer any other questions if you guys have them.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
And obviously, a lot of us know Mr. Belfiore is an Evans firefighter. I just also want to know for the record, I'm also golf buddies with his brother. That will have no bearing on the way I would vote in this. So just want to let that be public record.
I was like, he looks familiar. I just couldn't. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councilmember Neal?
Yes. I noted in some of the paperwork that you're planning a Mongolian grill there, and if that comes to fruition, I will be there. And even though I started off with some negative comments, and I did tell Mr. Melby that I would try to represent him tonight, I'm going to change my mind a little bit. I think this looks like a great project. And if you've been driving by that weed patch for 20 years, I've been driving by it for almost 50 years. So I'm happy to see, I keep saying all this new development takes care of some of these weed patches that I've had to put up with for 50 years. So I'm thrilled that it's coming in, and I wish you good success on it.
Any other comments or questions? And I'll just echo on that. I'm very excited about it. It's a great looking project. I own a restaurant right across the street from one of their other projects, and I just want to say how great it looks over there. They do a phenomenal job with everything they do, so they're going to be a huge asset to the community as it comes in. Their buildings are great. Their products, at least the couple they named, they're great. So huge asset to Evans. Thank you for thinking of us and being a part of our city. I'm in favor of it. There are no other questions or comments. I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the development agreement for the Hunters Reserve Commercial Plaza and authorize the mayor to sign the development agreement.
I second.
Motion and second to approve the development agreement for the Hunters Reserve Commercial Plaza and authorize the mayor to sign the development agreement. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, guys. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, consideration of resolution number 7-2022, a variance request for parking and setback requirements. I will open the public hearing and we'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another project that would bring more retail to Evans. This project would be located on 11th Avenue, near across the street from 33rd Street. And I'll turn it over to our Community Development Director, Ann Beth Johnson, for an overview of the variance request.
Thanks again, Jim and Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. So I think we have a presentation.
There's so many open. I'm looking for it. Give me a second.
Yep. So we're going to talk about a variance tonight. And in the land use code, variances are limited as to what somebody can apply for a variance for. Some of those limitations include minimum area of a lot, the width of a lot, the maximum height of structures and fences, minimum front yard, side yard, and rear yard setback, minimum off-street parking requirements, sign setback, height, or placement on a lot or a building. So in our particular land use code, those are the only things that people can apply for variances from. And this particular applicant is applying for variances for 2 items. And we're going to walk through those tonight. So again, we've gone over the limitations on what people can apply for variances for. And then the intent of a variance is a deviation from the dimensional requirements, the design or numerical requirements or limitations and other provisions of this title. So again, we're getting into the dimensional requirements of setbacks, width, and height, and parking numbers. So variance criteria for approval this evening. I just want to remind you all, this is what we're going to be looking at is 1806-100D. So all of that criteria needs to have been met in order to approve a variance. And then the process flow for a variance is on this slide. So again, before somebody even applies for a variance, staff and several staff, whether it be public works, operations, economic development, planning, ComDev, we all sit down and we go over, here are the steps that you need to follow if you want to apply for a variance. And here is, this is the criteria for the limitations on the variance. If you're applying for something outside those limitations, staff is most likely going to recommend denial because we can't even, there isn't anything that we can even guide you through the approval process. So then we have an application process, and they submit the application, we do completeness review, then we post public notice, put it in the paper, the referral responses, then we send it out to folks like Fire District to make sure that they can still get in and operate. Public Works, engineering. If the variance is for a property that would impact CDOT, we let CDOT know. If the variance is for something that impacts the school district, we let them know. Then we have internal development review team meetings, and then the staff report. The staff report then immediately goes back to the applicant The applicant then addresses items and gets us a second submittal. And usually by that second submittal for a variance, we're ready to then set the hearing. So then public notice surrounding property owners were noticed in January. The notice was published on the 4th of February in the Greeley Tribune, and the sign was posted on the property on the 21st of January. It did withstand some snow, but I did notice this week it's gone. But it was posted on time with more than adequate amount of hearing notice. Public hearings, the Board of Zoning Appeals did hear this on 2/22/22, and their recommendation for approval was sent to you, and then council then again is this evening. So this particular location, now that we understand the variance process and procedures and what the limitations are and the process that got us here, this is for the proposed Dollar General store. It is located right here on 11th Avenue. This facility right here is the post office. And then here is the Verge apartment complex. It's on the east side of 11th Avenue. So the zoning classification and the baseline dimensional standards. So the zoning classification is commercial 3, which is the highest intensity commercial property or zone district in Evans. It's about at 1.2 acres in size. The proposed land use is for retail uses intensive. The buffer yard requirements is one of the variances that we're going to be considering tonight. While not specifically called out, it still is a dimensional difference. And the buffer yard requirement between a commercial property and a residential property is 20 feet. Now the setback requirement from the rear yard is 5 feet. They're proposing to have a 10-foot buffer, which essentially doubles their setback requirements, but they still have that buffer yard requirement. And we'll talk about that in specific in a little bit. So the setback requirements, again, the front yard 25 feet, side and rear 5 feet, and then that northern property, because there's that little stub street that comes into the property, it's 25 feet from that northern property line too. And then parking for retail is 1 parking space for every 200 gross square feet of proposed retail space. So that's the benchmark. That's where we're going from. That's what the code says today. So their variance request number 1 is for that buffer yard depth. This is for the eastern property boundary. And again, the buffer yard requirement is 20 feet. The setback requirement is only 5 feet. So they're requesting 10 feet, which doubles their setback requirements, but puts in half, cuts in half their buffer yard requirement. They are there's a fence, that black wrought iron fence right here now that goes to separate the 2 properties. They are proposing to do some landscaping, especially along the back of the building, to soften the appearance of the building. And the location from the back side of this building to the nearest apartment building is 60 feet because it crosses a very large, the deep parking lot there. So staff felt as if they're doubling the setback requirements. The separation between the back of the building and the first apartment is 60 feet. Staff felt as if we could support that buffer being reduced by half because of the enhanced landscaping and just the setbacks from the apartment building right now. So that's the first request. The second request is in the number of parking spaces. So again, staff worked with the applicant. If you take the building square footage alone, just the entire building, they would need 53.2 spaces. But if you take the retail use of the building and you take out the restrooms and the warehousing space where the public isn't going to be, it goes down to 41.27 spaces. Dollar General has proposed 35 spaces. They've done a national survey, and I believe the representative from Dollar General, I hope he's joining us from Zoom, so he can talk to you about their retail study that they did. For this particular location, they feel as if 35 spaces will be more than adequate. They're also adding some bike racks. So if individuals, have those camelbacks on their bike, they can bike to the store. There's also a lot of pedestrian movement on 11th Avenue. And so they feel with the bikes, pedestrian movement that's inherent in that corridor, with the parking that they have proposed, will be more than adequate for this particular store. And based on information coming from the applicant themselves and looking at that they're willing to add some bicycle parking, they've added a pedestrian cut through from 11th from the sidewalk right to the front door, that we feel as if the parking requirement, the intent has been met. Okay, so again, we have the variance criteria for approval right here. That number 1A, it's the approval would not jeopardize the health, safety, or welfare of any person. Doubling the setback, but reducing the buffer, really, in the staff's opinion, does not jeopardize health, safety, or welfare. Neither does the parking variance, reducing the number of parking. The grant of variance is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the parcel, building, or structure. Yes, we feel as if that was met. The literal interpretation and enforcement of the terms in the provision would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other parcels in the same zoning district. It's a tall lot, but it has a narrow depth. And so we feel that was not necessarily applicant caused in that rationale. So that meets number 1, there are special conditions or circumstances which are unique. Also on the buffering, they're doubling the setback. And again, that distance between the back of the building and the nearest apartment building will be 60 feet because there is that buffer already with the parking lot. And that such practical difficulty and unnecessary hardship have not been unreasonably self-imposed by the applicant. Again, they're doubling their setback. They didn't have to do that. They shrunk the building down to the size that would fit within that envelope. So that's for the buffer. For the parking, they did a national study. They are adding bike racks to boost the amount of parking, vehicular as well as bike parking, to the site. And then just so you can see, this is what the proposed building will look like. They have some, it will be like that drive it, or that it looks like the stucco. They have some brick or stone masonry on the bottom. This is the front elevation right here. This is the back elevation. And again, there will be some landscaping in here. This is the left elevation, so I'm assuming that's the north elevation. And then this is the right elevation. And there's a lot of landscaping between the right elevation and the edge of the property in the back of the post office as well. And that concludes staff's presentation. There are recommended motions in your packet, and I'm available to answer any questions, and I believe Ed may be on the Zoom call, the applicant's representative, and he can answer any questions that you might have as well.
Thank you, Ann. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this item? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition of this item? Thanks. Hearing none, questions of staff at this time, or of the applicant?
I do.
Go ahead, Bo.
Ann, would you go back to the site diagram that you were showing the difference in the setback? Yes, that's exactly right. My concern with this is, I've got 2 questions, but the immediately on the right of this screen, is that, that's included in the 60 foot, is that a parking lot you said?
Yeah, this is a drive lane
Okay.
and parking lot for the Verge.
Okay, so my next question is, based on this site, what about the delivery trucks? My concern is I don't want to have delivery trucks dropping off their goods and impeding in on the post office or the Verge or in the street or whatever. So is this site plan allowing for delivery trucks, semi-trailers, whatever needs to be delivered?
Yes, ma'am. And in fact, they did an auto wheel turning template to make sure that the semi trucks, they will be coming into this northern portion here. This will be their loading area, that they could make the turn, as well as a fire truck can make the turn in here as well. So there will be no semi parking out here, no staging of vehicles out on that little stub street. And there is a black wrought iron fence right now here, so there can't be any any movement back in this area. It's just there will be plants and there's a fence.
Okay, thank you. That's my question there.
Thank you. Councilman O'Neill, do you have a question?
I have some extensive questions.
Fire them away.
History. You've mentioned that the setback requirement for the rear doubles, but it actually reduces, it actually cuts in half the buffer yard. And I'm not real familiar with how that works in the land use code, I will admit. I'm assuming it's all right to do it that way. And I don't have too much of a problem with just a 10-foot rear setback back there with that iron fence already in place. I would, again, I would like to know if non-potable irrigation water will be available here.
So right now the site plan is being administratively approved, and you'll see the development agreement come before you in the next month or 6 weeks. And so some of those items will be worked out that time.
Okay, because the original developer of the Verge, and I can't remember what it was originally called back then, proposed to put in a strip mall in this site, and it would have been fed from the non-potable system from what is now the Verge. So you might keep that in mind when you go through the rest of this.
Yep. And if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
So again, tonight we're just talking about the 2 variance requests. And with the site plan review, we look at everything, including landscaping and irrigation. And so we are working with the applicant on some of those issues. And we'll come back and we'll tell you what we were able to do with the development agreement.
Okay. As far as the parking, the 200 square feet, is that an Evans standard, or is that basically a ballpark figure for the state or the national standard?
So that is currently in the land use code and the development standards that calls for 1 space per 200 square feet. And that's a current Evans standard.
Okay, so based upon that, I looked at a business close to this, and they had approximately the 230 square feet, a little bit less than that of actual retail space. So that would be 1 and 3200ths of a parking space, and I assume that would need to be a handicap space. So based on that, the business that's next door to it has 44 parking spaces with 2 handicap spaces, and they would have a hard time servicing their clientele because it's post office. And I can imagine what the outcry would be if we had just 1 parking space there. And basically the 44 parking spaces at the post office is the same amount or less than the amount that this business is requesting we go to.
Councilmember Neal, do you have questions at this time? This is for the question part of the open public.
Okay. So, sorry.
It's okay.
Got into the comments, I guess. That's no, I guess that's
okay. We will have a comment part here in just a moment.
Okay.
Other questions of staff or the applicant that we have?
Have none.
I do not have any other questions, so I will close the public hearing. Now it's time for council discussion. Councilmember Neal.
well, as I said, there it seems like we're reducing the parking on or allowing this to be reduced. I see problems with parking at other facilities like the both come and goes. And I know that during the one that was built on 37th Street, the main concern at that time was for landscaping from the city council. And I've racked my brains because I cannot remember for sure if they reduced the amount of spaces there at that site. But it's rather obvious that at some of these places that come in, that they don't have enough parking for the amount of customers that they wind up getting, which is a good thing, I guess, because it means that the businesses are successful in Evans and are doing quite well.
Thank you, Fred. Anything else?
Yeah.
Other comments on this item?
They meet the criteria for the variance request for our code, and the zoning board of appeals have supported it, so I don't see any reason to deny it, so I'm in favor of it.
My concern, of course, is with the neighbors, and it looks like the neighbors have plenty of buffer with the variance, so I'm also in favor of that, and I appreciate the business coming to that location.
I also echo what was mentioned. I do appreciate the business. It's great, especially in that area, considering that the verge is there. I think the amount of spaces, it's reasonable, but I'm in favor. I'm definitely in favor for any business to come in, as well as, it will provide jobs for our community. So I'm good with that.
Anyone else? I'm also in favor of it. I think it's going to be a good addition to the city. I think the space, like Councilwoman Spear mentioned, between the Verge building and it is definitely far enough for that. And as far as the parking spaces go, if they don't have enough parking spaces, that can only hurt them. So I'm assuming they're building this, the amount of parking spaces they think they need. If they needed more, they would obviously build more. I think they have their number, and I think it works for them. I agree with not counting the square footage of an office or storage in those square feet for that. Doesn't make sense. So I am in favor of this as well. Any other comments? Hearing none, I would take a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 07-2022 to allow the variance request made by Dollar General.
Second.
Motion and second to approve resolution number 7-2022 to allow the variance request made by Dollar General. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, consideration of approval of the land use code update contract. We'll hear back from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. As we conclude our both land use and transportation master planning projects, we're now mobilizing for our municipal code updates that will implement the vision and the strategies from those master plans. This is a major municipal code project, and as council may imagine, we don't have, we try to keep our staff for the amount of development and other projects coming in. It's often more cost effective to contract for projects that are kind of spike labor demands like this. So staff has budgeted. We believe we'll need about $240,000 for this project, and staff has secured approximately 60% of the funding for this project from grants, which is a major help and will help us to really, I think, do a complete job on this code update. So with that, I hope I didn't steal too much of the fire. I'll ask Ann Beth Johnson to give an overview of the consultant procurement process and our recommendation for a contract award tonight.
Yep, thanks, Jim. Members of council, Mr. Mayor. So as you know, we concluded an 18 to 20 month master plan process, which is really exciting. Great visions and values that we want to see instilled into the city of Evans, and the best place to make sure that those visions and values are rolled out into our future land use planning is land use code. And as you've heard tonight and in other public hearings, there are some scrubbing needs in our land use code. And so we'd like to take that opportunity to do that and incorporating, drought tolerant landscaping and completely fair and transparent land use processes, which we all like to do. So an RFP, once we found out that we were the award winner, the RFP was waiting and hoping that we would be awarded the grants. And the RFP was published on December 13th. We had about 7 individuals and firms attend our mandatory pre-application meeting right over the holidays. And then 2 very good firms did apply for did submit RFPs. And the RFP selection committee consisted of Caitlin Puga, Drew Lyman, and myself. And we reviewed those requests, and I believe Randy also reviewed those proposals. Both firms included a contingency fund, and what that contingency fund is they're coming in, they're saying we're going to map out our work product for $15,000 less than what your maximum award amount is. So when we get to the end and we realize, oh my gosh, Evans really needs X, and it hadn't been envisioned, we don't have budget for it, they're able to deliver on X. Now, if we need more time on a certain subject, then we have a little bit of that slush already built into the grant distribution. So that's what the contingency is there for. We did teams interviews, and then we also had each team provide us with a presentation. And both teams were very well versed. Both teams would have been great to work with. We called references, and after really evaluating the process that is best for Evans and the deliverable that's going to be best for Evans and calling those references again, we felt as if we wanted to go with the team at Gould Evans. They're including a specific neighborhood team that will take the step beyond that market analysis done as part of the master plan. They're going to take a look at our current code and determine what are the impediments to entry level, the missing middle, and that estate type housing product. And do we have things in our code right now that limit those individuals from coming forth to Evans, but they're also going to then go out into the market and say, this is what Northern Colorado market wants to absorb for those different housing products. This is what the Evans Greeley area can absorb for those different types of housing products. Now, Evans, this is what we think you can absorb from what you already have in the pipeline already constructed. This is what we believe you can absorb for those 3 different types of housing products. So we're going to get something that's really good and useful that we can also then use that for marketing when we want individuals to come into Evans. And we'll have that support for those different types of housing products as well. So we're excited about that. And they have neighborhood, and I'm sorry, all of a sudden I'm blanking out, neighborhood team. And that's going to be the specialists on that one. And then Ayers Associates will also be involved with some of the local front running. So we, again, after reviewing all of the references, not a single reference came back from Gould Evans with a negative remark. In fact, they said that oftentimes they delivered above what they promised to deliver, and sometimes they would find problems in the code that maybe staff might not know about, and they would come up with some solutions to help deliver. So we believe that is the best fit for Evans. And the financial summary, it's in your packet. Again, as Jim mentioned, we have received substantial grants for this. Staff does recommend that council award the land use code update project contract to Gould Evans, and there are suggested motions in your packet as well. And that concludes staff's presentation. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have, and I believe representatives from Gould Evans may be on the Zoom call.
Questions of staff on this item?
Questions, pretty straightforward.
I have none.
I just wanted to be clear on the budget, if that's okay.
Please.
You're anticipating the total budget of $240,000, and it says, is it correct that you have 2 grants in the amount of $142,500 then? Is that what the grants are?
There are 2 grants that total $142,500, plus our match needed to be $97,500. So the total should be $240,000.
That's about right, but I'm just saying that that's a pretty significant amount of this request in grants, which is very nice. So I just wanted to be sure that you had that grant, that the grants were presented to us and the amount, so that we knew that we had a substantial amount paid for there. Thank you.
Other questions? I'll just ask a question, and I'm sure it's fine and everything's okay. What is the spending limit of the city manager? Is he allowed to sign a $240,000 contract? I think he might be, because it's grant money, I'm assuming. But what is your spending limit, or is that a contract I would need to sign? Because on our passage of it, it says for the city manager to sign. I didn't know if the city manager could sign a $240,000 contract.
The contingency would be used only with city manager
Approval and authorize the city manager to sign the contract.
Yeah, if the council approves the contract.
Right. So the city manager couldn't just sign it on his own. But if the city council approves the contract and directs him to sign it, he can do that.
Okay, perfect. I knew there was a way. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's you guys' decision.
Okay. Yeah. So that motion can be made however you guys would like to make that motion. So, any other questions or comments on this item?
Thank you for the grant and all your hard work, and I'm glad to hear that yours will still be helping out. I really liked them, so thank you.
And Mayor, if I may, there's really no difference to me or from staff's
I just wanted to. I just know there's a limit what the city manager can sign for, and to me that seemed like it was over it. But as long as our city attorney says we can make the motion one of 2 ways, so either way, I'm fine with it as well. So. Anyone wants to entertain a motion?
I move to award the land use code update project contract to Gould Evans in the amount not to exceed $240,000, inclusive of a $15,000 contingency to be used only with city manager approval, and authorize the city manager to sign the contract.
Second.
Motion and second toward the land use code update project contract to Gould Evans in the amount not to exceed of $240,000, inclusive of a $15,000 contingency to be used only with city manager approval, and authorize the city manager to sign the contract. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, consideration of 2022 concrete replacement project contract.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the next phase of our pavement management program for this summer, and I'll turn it over to City Engineer Mark Oberschmidt for an overview and recommendation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is the contract for concrete replacement. This is the 3rd year of renewing it with Naranjo Construction. We have a bunch of projects in line, including a couple of driveways on 23rd Avenue to mitigate some drainage issues by the Palomino restaurant. So we're going to take care of those. One of the things I wanted to make note of, there's a typo in the staff memo. The actual contract amount is $498,626.38. So that's the amount that should be read off in the motion.
Can you say it again?
$498,626.38. And we have a budget of $500,000. And I have the breakdown of the budget for the various parts if anybody would like to see it. So we don't have a whole lot of contingency. So that we're going to get what we get done with those two driveways being the most important parts of it. And then as we finalize everything out, we're going to spend, as this is a maintenance type project, we're going to spend every dime of the $500,000. And with that, and Naranjo's done great work for us over the years, and we appreciate their efforts. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you. Questions of staff or comments at this time? Anything, Laura?
I just want to say that I've seen them working on the sidewalks on the east side of town, and they have done a fantastic job. So, and I'm very pleased to see that we're going to address the drainage issues around the Palomino's restaurant.
Mark, are you anticipating a big jump in concrete prices, or you think it's going to stay?
Well, they've agreed to only a 4% increase on this year, which is great. We know that there's some other prices that are happening, oils through the roof, and they won't hold their prices. We just got another notification from one of the other concrete suppliers this afternoon about a surcharge on deliveries. So we know things are going up, and as we said, as we noted earlier in the discussion on the police department, there's potential for 10% increases over the board, across the board for construction this year. So we're bracing for it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Other comments and questions? Hearing none, we can have a motion.
I move to approve the 2022 concrete replacement project contract with Naranjo Civil Constructors in the amount of $498,626.38 with a 5% contingency to be used only with city manager approval for a not to exceed amount of $500,000.
I second.
Motion and second to approve the 2022 concrete replacement project contract with Naranjo Civil Constructors in the amount of $498,626.38 with a 5% contingency to be used only with city manager approval for a not to exceed amount of $500,000. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, 1% road tax review for Tabor. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. So turn my page here. This item is really a housekeeping agenda item that we thought was important to bring forward in open session for council to have the opportunity to be on the record that our new 1% road tax is compliant with the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, or Tabor. Tabor requires that the first full year, the first calendar year of collections of a new revenue source can't exceed the amount originally estimated when the ballot measure was approved for collections. And if it were to exceed that original estimate, the city would have to make arrangements to either return the excess to the public or have another election that might allow the city to keep that money. But I'm pleased to tell you that now that Jackie's closing out, that our finance director and finance department is closing out 2021, 2021, we can say confidently that we have not exceeded that original projection. The original projection was for more than the $3,055,380 that we have brought in. It was actually for $3.5 million. So said a little more simply, we are well within the Tabor limit for that new road tax, and the acceptance of this report will just put us on the record for that compliance.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions or comments from staff on this item?
I have none.
Hearing none, I entertain a motion.
I move to accept the attached road tax revenue report.
I second.
Motion and a second to approve the attached road tax revenue report. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item, report city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick things. It's always fun to look at what's happening for our community's kids in recreation. Spring volleyball season got underway this week with 181 kids participating. That's kindergarten through 8th grade. That's almost doubled from the number that participated in our fall volleyball program. So lots of good participation. We're really coming back strong in our recreation areas. Second thing I'll just mention is that just a reminder to the council and the public that the council's approved meeting schedule for this month allowed for a change from the regular Tuesday meeting next time, which would have been April 5th, to a Monday meeting because of the municipal election that could have been occurring that day, to the Monday meeting on April 4th. So your next meeting will be Monday, April 4th, instead of Tuesday, April 5th. That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. City attorney?
Yeah, there are a couple of items that we need to touch on in an executive session, but nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone who wishes to address city council on any item this evening? Seeing none, anyone virtually? Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I move to go into executive session to determine the city's position regarding matters that are subject to negotiation with neighboring municipalities, develop strategies, and instruct negotiators in connection with the city's land use master plan pursuant to CRS section 24-6-42, section 4, subsection E.
And I also move to go into executive session pursuant to section 24-6-4024, subsection B, to receive legal advice from the city attorney regarding the city's potential liability for conduct of police officers.
I second both.
A motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We will take a 5-minute break and go into executive session.